Racist cops pull over a black FBI agent and accuse him of theft. What happened next will shock you. Imagine being arrested for something you didn't do. Not just arrested, but humiliated. What if the very people sworn to protect and serve you, instead, targeted you simply because of the color of your skin? Now imagine you're not just anyone. You're a highly trained FBI agent. How would you feel? How would you react? This is the story of Kelvin Harris, a decorated FBI agent who found himself pulled over on a quiet highway checkpoint for what should have been a routine stop. But instead, it turned into a nightmare he would never forget. Kelvin was driving home from a long day at the bureau. He'd just wrapped up a high-profile investigation and was looking forward to a quiet evening with his family. The highway stretched out before him, and the soft hum of his car was almost calming. But then, flashing red and blue lights filled his rearview mirror. His heart sank, not out of fear, but frustration. Another random stop, he thought. Or was it really random? He pulled over, rolling down his window as two officers approached. Their faces were stern, their energy tense. Kelvin noticed how their hands hovered near their holsters as if anticipating trouble. Why were they so ready for a fight? License and registration, the officer barked. Kelvin complied, handing over his documents with steady hands. May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer? Step out of the car, the officer snapped, ignoring his question. What would you do in that moment? Would you argue? Would you comply? Kelvin chose to stay calm. He had been in far more dangerous situations during his career, but this felt different. This wasn't about enforcing the law. This felt personal. As Kelvin stepped out of his car, the second officer began circling it, shining a flashlight into the windows. This your vehicle? The first officer asked, his tone heavy with suspicion. Yes, Kelvin replied firmly. The officer smirked. Funny, doesn't seem like someone like you would be driving something this nice. Kelvin's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. What would you have done? The accusations begin. Do you know why we stopped you? The second officer suddenly asked, stepping closer. Kelvin shook his head. No, I don't. You matched the description of a suspect we're looking for, the first officer said. Kelvin raised an eyebrow. Description? Black male, mid-30s, driving a luxury car, the officer replied with a sneer. How would you feel hearing that? Kelvin couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was his only crime being a black man driving a nice car? Before he could respond, the second officer added, and we've got a report of stolen property. You mind if we search your vehicle? Kelvin had nothing to hide, but he knew his rights. Unless you have probable cause or a warrant, I'm not consenting to a search. The officers exchanged a look, their smirks vanishing. Suddenly, the situation escalated. Turn around and put your hands behind your back, the first officer ordered. Kelvin was stunned. What am I being arrested for? We've got a report of a stolen item, the officer said vaguely. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Kelvin remained calm, but the tension was palpable. The officers cuffed him roughly, shoving him against his car. What would you do if you were in Kelvin's shoes? Kelvin was led to the squad car, his mind racing. He could hear the officers talking behind him, though their words were muffled. He caught snippets. Gold watch. Wealthy victim. Matches the profile. But Kelvin didn't own a gold watch. In fact, he hadn't even seen one recently. Why were they so quick to accuse him? As the officers prepared to take Kelvin to the station, he decided to speak up. I'm an FBI agent, he said firmly. The officers froze. Yeah, right, one scoffed. Kelvin nodded toward his wallet, which they had taken during the arrest. Check my credentials. The second officer hesitated, then pulled out Kelvin's FBI badge. His face went pale. Can you imagine their shock? The first officer's confidence wavered. Why didn't you say that earlier? Kelvin glared at him. Why should I have to? You didn't arrest me because of a stolen watch. You arrested me because of your bias. The officers exchanged nervous glances. Suddenly, their tones shifted. This must be some kind of misunderstanding, the second officer stammered. But could an apology ever be enough? Kelvin wasn't letting this slide. You accused me without evidence, humiliated me, and treated me like a criminal. Do you even have proof of this so-called stolen watch? The officers mumbled excuses, but Kelvin had already decided to take action. Once released, Kelvin didn't waste time. He reported the incident to both the local police department and his FBI superiors. An internal investigation was launched, and the officers involved were placed on leave. Kelvin's story didn't end there. He took the matter to the media, sharing his experience to shed light on racial profiling. What would you have done in Kelvin's place? The public outcry was immense. People demanded accountability, and soon after, both officers were terminated from their positions. The department also announced new mandatory training programs on racial bias and de-escalation tactics. Kelvin's ordeal became a rallying cry for justice. His story reminded the world that no one is immune to prejudice, not even those who serve at the highest levels of law enforcement. What will it take for things to change? How many more stories like Kelvin's need to be told before real progress is made? This isn't just Kelvin's fight, it's all of ours. What would you do to ensure this doesn't happen again?
If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from and leave a 100 in the comment section because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos.